I had a feeling there was more to yoga than just fancy stretching. When the pandemic hit and everything became uncertain, it calmed me down and made me feel lighter. Yoga's growing popularity got me thinking. What is yoga doing for others, and how can it help them cope with the pandemic?
And then let's bring the thoughts and awareness inside the body. Just noticing how you feel, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And just taking a little moment for ourselves. So, welcome everybody. My name's Alex, if you don't know me, and today we're just going to share a little calming flow with you all, just to bring a bit of calm amongst this storm. We live in a fast-paced world, and everything's designed to be sped up. So slowing down you can find it quite difficult if you don't do it quite often. And it is a type of therapy. So sometimes, it's joyful. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's hard work.
Done quite a lot of work on my nerves and stuff over lockdown. So if you conducted these interviews before lockdown, you probably wouldn't have got a lot out of me.
Yeah, so lockdown in general, I think a little bit of loneliness, everyone gets a little bit of that. But the yoga classes have helped, and I said that to all my clients. I said, I get as much from this as you get because we have that little connection. So that's been a little bit of a challenge for me. Yeah, for me, I'm quite a social person, and it became a little bit sort of like a time where I sort of questioned because I was on my own a lot, you start to think a lot more. Mm-hmm. So as well as alongside the sort of the yoga and stuff like that, I was starting to delve into chakras, and I'd done a little bit of Reiki training as well before lockdown.
So yeah, I had all the information there, but I think I wasn't really tuned into it. But then when I started doing the Reiki, and I've done my Reiki level 1, which is pretty much all of our chakras, I can't help tie the two now. Now I'm starting to think about what's my style of teaching, because before it was getting a little bit robotic. But yeah, delving into the Reiki has given me a little focus, and like you say, now I'm starting to think, maybe this is how I want to teach. And it's funny, my personality is starting to come a little bit more out, I'm having proper fun sometimes. But that's kind of what people need. I don't think it's what I want to give people anyway. I don't want to just give them a functional warrior 1, warrior 2, high lunge, blah, blah, blah. I want to actually give them a little bit more of an experience. But in doing that, if I lose people who enjoyed the functional side, then that's fine. I'm just not the teacher for them right now.
Change is one of them things that we deal with in class sometimes. We talk about it because it always happens, and it does. And this is probably the biggest period of change that we've all experienced for a long time. So to try and make sense of that, with the sort of uncertainty and the shifting, you just have to place a little, to stop yourself going insane and having all them thoughts, you have to place a little bit of trust in what's happening.
I'd say that many people that practice yoga is because they are curious about something else that Western medicine is not giving. I don't think that nobody that had practiced yoga or practices yoga would not take what they've learned just for that session. Hi everyone, I'm Ariel. I am from Valencia, Spain, and I'm currently studying English and creative writing here in Manchester. I'm a published author, and I am a kind of yogi, I would say, yeah. I wanted to find something that I could do at home without much noise from the outside, and I could have my time and feel that I was taking care of myself at the same time. Because, breakup and all that, you realize that you actually need a lot of internal work to do. And then I realized that it was not about the breakup. I realized that it was about me. I didn't like myself, and so I needed some self-care and, you know, improve my self-esteem, and that helped. I remember like getting really, really, really extremely angry at myself because I couldn't do the certain things that she would do in the video. And that she, even though she constantly reminded you that it's a progress, it's a thing that everyone has its path and all that, you know. And I thought that was a very therapeutic way to see life in general, not just that particular session.
Yeah, it's also interesting the relationship you have with yourself, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
How yoga changes that.
Yeah, and how by changing the body and what you're doing to the body, it can affect your mind and vice versa. What yoga does to you is it kind of confronts you with your body and how you perceive your body and how you feel it. I've found that sometimes it can be difficult to concentrate and know what you want out from the practice, because sometimes we start doing practice without thinking what we actually want from it with intention. We've been trying to wipe that from our minds, to not pay attention to the intention. In our lives here at the moment, we just kind of like get busy, but that doesn't mean that you're proactive. That doesn't mean that you're doing the right thing. Doing the right thing doesn't have to be anything with being busy, because busy is a distraction. It doesn't mean that you're actually gonna get more. You're gonna live like a wholesome life. I like yoga because it uses words such as honoring your practice, honoring your intentions. It raises awareness about how you feel, how you think, how you act, how you breathe, how you move. You sometimes might not, be able to find the balance because your mind is in somebody else's, in somewhere else's place. And that's what happens, and that's the magic, and that's how everything's connected.
Hi, I'm Lewis. I'm 24. I live in Manchester. I started practicing yoga about 4 or 5 months ago, at the beginning of lockdown, and I'm quite an active person. I'm training for a marathon at the same time as well right now. Like the rest of my hobbies were swept from under my feet, so I had loads of time to play with in the evenings, and I'm really extroverted. My poor housemates can't deal with me constantly going on, so I had to do something and fill my own time with, which I'm not really used to doing. Coupled with the running, I think it really helped. Practicing yoga was dealing with the bigger stuff, the feeling of feeling of like isolation and having to confront the fact that I'm not so good at spending time with myself, and like having to actually learn how to do that. And so I think yoga really helped with the bigger questions, like spending time just on your own and enjoying that and being at peace with that, and kind of dealing with the stuff that goes on when you're inside all the time, and like parts of your life have kind of just been taken away. Especially at the beginning, found myself getting incredibly frustrated, with basically my own expectations of myself, like, oh, you could do this last time, or, you should be able to do this, why can't, you're strong, or you're like, that kind of thing. So it's actually not that pleasant. Like, But I think it's my own issue because I'm way too competitive. So I'm just like, I should be able to, I should be able to do this, but I can't. I spoke to my mum, who's quite keen on yoga. I was like, I'm finding it really hard. And she said, you shouldn't be finding it hard. You should be listening to yourself and do it within your own kind of range of comfortability. To speaking to her really changed that, actually. What have I learnt about myself? I have the capacity to give myself a bit of leniency, I think when I'm practicing more often, I'm calmer and kinder to myself. I'm still easily frustrated and I'm still really competitive, but I think when I'm doing yoga, it's a nice break away from that part of myself. I think it's something I really value, that part of myself, but it's also something that probably shouldn't take 100% of my time.
What made you persevere through the difficult bit?
It's a good question. I actually cried quite a lot, like at the beginning, partly from frustration, partly from stopping your brain, realizing how emotional you're feeling. It was really funny. I kept telling people, "Oh, I started practicing yoga every day." And I'm like, "Oh, how is it?" I say, "Oh, I keep crying. I can't help it." Yeah.
And everyone's experience is very personal and unique. So, yeah. And just
Mine's a teary ego fest.
crying is good.
As we discussed, yeah.
Crying is excellent.
Crying is great.
I get really scared saying I'm a yoga teacher.
Why?
I don't feel experienced enough, and I guess also with COVID, because I haven't had that much chance to actually teach a real class in person, it doesn't feel like I'm allowed to have that title yet. Hi, I'm Polly. I am a newly qualified yoga teacher living in Manchester currently. I was travelling around Thailand. Before I came home, I trained as a yoga teacher in Koh Samui. But yeah, when I came home, I actually didn't feel like I'd left travelling. I was still learning about myself through yoga, through doing more meditation, through doing more yoga, through studying the philosophy. I was still finding myself from my living room, which sounds really sad, but it's true. So past week in terms of yoga practice has been infrequent and poor, if I'm brutally honest. I think maybe in the last month or so, it's almost as if my mind has been so busy that I've forgotten that yoga is there for me. It's very much become something that I teach instead of something that I use, and it can still take up 2 or 3 hours of my morning. And so, yeah, I've had so much to do. I'm quite glad that I've made time for the other things that I've needed to do. Since I got back, yoga has become a task that's on my list, and that's completely changed it for me. It's not, I think the only place where yoga is a safe space is when I do Ashtanga now, because I know that I don't teach Ashtanga. It's the only one which is for me. It's the only one that I don't have to think about. Whereas even if I end up watching a video online, I still have a notebook next to my mat and I'm still like, oh, I really like the way she moved, I'll put it into my class. I'm always thinking about how can I apply this to my teaching. It really brings you home, because they're the same movements, you feel safe, you know how your body moves in that sequence. And there are fluctuations from day to day, but knowing that you feel good after it and not having to think about a sequence, or almost not having to ask yourself, how do I feel today? What moves does my body need today? And being able to settle into a prescribed sequence, for me, was really settling, and it becomes quite meditative.
I think at the moment I'm pretty much at the bottom of this 8-limbed tree, just trying to look at the yamas and niyamas and taking yoga off the mat and pulling away from yoga, just being asanas, and trying to incorporate the yamas and niyamas into how I respond to the rest of the world. My focus is definitely, due to the 8 limbs, I think my focus has shifted a lot more onto trying to be present as opposed to trying to be better.
Through this project, I discovered how yoga can help people cope with uncertain times. By learning to address how they really feel, they become less affected by external uncertainties. Through developing self-reliance, they start to discover their true selves. Towards the end of my project, I started to struggle with my own practice. All these ideas and new perspectives were bouncing around my mind, and I found it hard to pay attention to my own experience. As this project comes to an end, I look forward to focusing again on my own experiences.